The rain hadn't stopped since the day they arrived. Ashwood House loomed over the trees like it had been waiting, its broken shutters rattling with every gust of wind. It was a Victorian monster, wrapped in vines, sitting on a slope at the edge of a forest that locals called the Hollow. Mia Whitaker, 14, stepped out of the car and stared at it with quiet dread. Her father Nathan, distracted and exhausted, was already unloading boxes from the U-Haul. Her mother, Rachel, just stared up at the house, eyes glassy. No one said it aloud, but they all felt it. This was the last try. After Caleb drowned, nothing had been the same. The grief swallowed their family whole. They didn't move to Ashwood House for adventure. They came to escape a silence that had already consumed one child. But this house had its own kind of silence. Inside, the air was thick with dust. The wallpaper peeled like old skin. Furniture, left behind decades ago, sagged and cracked. The realtor hadn't lied. The house was structurally sound. But there was something else. A heaviness, like walking into a room where someone had just been arguing. But you arrived too late to hear it. That first night, Mia didn't sleep. The fireplace popped and hissed. Her window moaned in the wind. She stared at the ceiling and waited for something she couldn't name. At exactly 3:12 a.m., she heard it. Whispers, faint, skimming along the baseboards, under the floor, like a conversation taking place just beneath the wood. She sat up, her breath clouded in the air. The room had gone cold, freezing like the lake where Caleb had died. Then she saw it. A soft yellow light glowing from the bottom of the basement door across the hall. They hadn't opened that door. The realtor said it was sealed. Unsafe. Avoid it for now, he'd warned. That wing of the house has issues. Mia got up slowly, pulled a sweatshirt over her pajamas, and crept toward the door. As she approached, the whispers stopped. The light dimmed. The air thickened. She touched the doorknob. Locked. She turned away and stepped on her sketchbook. She didn't remember bringing it with her. But there it was in the hallway. She opened it. Only one page had anything on it. A crude drawing of a door, the basement door. And in black smudged pencil, a message above it. It never locked from our side. In the morning, she told her mother what happened. Rachel barely reacted. Mia, it was a dream. You're drawing what you imagined. This house is strange, yes, but it's just old. It's creaky. You've had a lot on your mind. Mia knew better. Her mother hadn't really looked at her since Caleb died. At school, she went to the library and tried to find something. Anything about Ashwood House. Nothing came up. No history. No headlines. It was like the house didn't exist before the listing. But when she searched Ashwood Hollow, she found one result. A blog post from 2002. No author name. No comments. Just text. They said she was missing. But she was never missing. The house took her. And gave her back wrong. That night, Mia sat in her room staring at the door. At 3:12 a.m., she was wide awake. This time, it wasn't whispers she heard. It was the sound of something breathing from underneath her bed. She didn't scream. She didn't move. She just listened. The breathing was shallow, fast, like someone trying not to be noticed. Then she saw fingers, gray, narrow fingers, slip just barely into view at the edge of her blanket. She bolted upright, yanked the covers off the bed, and grabbed her flashlight. Nothing. The room was empty. Under the bed, nothing. The next day, Nathan decided to inspect the crawlspace under the house. There was a small, rusted hatch on the side of the foundation, mostly covered by ivy. He forced it open and crawled in with a flashlight. The space was narrow, filled with roots and cobwebs. As he moved, something scraped his shoulder. He turned and saw a message carved into the wood beam. "She's still down here." Nathan didn't tell anyone. That evening, Mia found another page in her sketchbook. She hadn't drawn it. At least, she didn't remember drawing it. This one showed a girl, pale, hair over her face, standing in a narrow tunnel. Her mouth was wide open, but instead of a scream, dark tendrils spilled from it like smoke. Underneath the drawing, a single word. Hollow. She showed it to her father. He stared at it too long, then said, "No more drawing before bed." Later that week, the family dog Scout went missing. They found muddy paw prints leading into the old hallway toward the sealed-off door, the one that always stayed locked. Nathan tried to pry it open. It wouldn't budge. But that night, Scout returned. Filthy, shaking, eyes wide. He wouldn't go near the hallway again. That same night, the whispers returned. Mia placed her ear against the floor. She heard her name, whispered, gasped, and another voice, younger, male, Caleb. The next morning, they found dozens of handprints across the inside of the windows. Child-sized. No one had been outside. Mia stayed home from school. She walked the halls, trailing her fingers across the walls. The old wallpaper felt like it pulsed beneath her hand. In the living room, she found something that hadn't been there before. An old photo tucked behind a broken mirror. It showed a little girl in a white dress, standing in front of Ashwood House. Her eyes were blacked out with ink. The back of the photo had one word, return. Mia brought it to her mother. Rachel froze. She turned pale. Her lips moved, but no words came. Mom, Mia asked. Rachel finally whispered, "That's me." The photo haunted her. Rachel didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the picture Mia had found. The girl in the white dress, her own child face staring back, eyes blacked out. But she didn't remember that day. She didn't remember the house. Nothing about Ashwood Hollow rang a bell. But deep down, something felt familiar. She tried to brush it off, tried to pretend Mia was just being creative, that the house wasn't doing anything, that grief still distorted them all. But denial only worked in daylight, because at night the house came alive. Mia began to hear things in her room, scratches on the window even when there was no wind, whispers from the floor. And once, when she passed by her mirror after brushing her teeth, her reflection didn't move. It just stared at her and smiled. The next day, she found a room that hadn't existed before. At the end of the upstairs hallway, past the attic door, there was now a narrow passage, barely wide enough for her shoulders. At the end of that passage was a door. No handle, just a round indentation in the center. Mia pressed her palm against it. Clicked. The door opened inward, into a space made entirely of mirrors. Dozens of them. Small, handheld, cracked, shattered, spotless. Some antique, some modern. All of them reflecting her from impossible angles. In the center of the room was a child's chair. Wooden, rocking slightly. On the seat, a porcelain doll with white hair and hollow eyes. She turned to leave and saw something in the mirror. Behind her, a girl, white dress, black hair, standing motionless, just a few feet away. But when Mia spun around, no one was there. She looked back at the mirror. The girl was still there, only now she was smiling. That night, Mia locked her bedroom door. She placed the doll in a shoebox and taped it shut. But at 3:12 a.m., she woke to find the box on her pillow. The doll was back in her lap. Meanwhile, Rachel decided to dig through county records. At the library, she asked for documents about Ashwood Hollow. The clerk hesitated, then brought out a single old file. It was thin, too thin. Inside, a yellowed page from 1973, titled Missing Child Report, subject, Rachel T. Hayes. Rachel froze. Hayes was her maiden name. The file claimed a 5-year-old girl went missing for 3 days from her home in Charleston, then suddenly reappeared, unhurt but unresponsive. She wouldn't say where she'd been, said she didn't remember. The location she was last seen? Ashwood Hollow. Rachel dropped the file and ran out of the library. Mia was drawing again. More and more, but the images disturbed her. Children with stitched mouths. Her own face crying blood. A door at the bottom of a stairwell. Every time she tried to stop, her hand kept moving. It was like the images were being given to her. On the back of one drawing, in someone else's handwriting, were the words, "You were always the key." Nathan finally spoke up. He had been quiet for days, isolating himself in the garage. "I saw her," he told Rachel. "Down by the basement window. A little girl. She looked like Mia. But she wasn't her." He showed Rachel the carvings he'd found in the crawlspace. Not just one. Dozens. Names, dates, and symbols, strange ones. Circles with lines crossing through. A hand with 5 eyes. A child's face cracked in half. And then he said the thing Rachel feared the most. "I think she's coming back." Rachel stared at him. "Who?" Nathan whispered. "You." The next day they called a psychic. She was old, calm, and unervingly direct. As soon as she entered the house, her nose bled. She walked room by room in silence, then said, "This house doesn't want you. It wants her." "Mia?" Rachel asked. The psychic shook her head. "No, the other her." Rachel didn't understand, until the woman took out a small black mirror, held it to Mia's face. In the reflection, Mia's eyes weren't her own. They were dark, deep, empty. Rachel dropped the mirror. It shattered. When she looked up, the psychic was already gone. That night, Rachel opened the attic. She had avoided it for weeks. The realtor warned them it was unstable. But something told her she needed to go up. The air was heavy. The steps creaked. At the top was a single trunk. Old, dusty, locked. She smashed the lock with a crowbar. Inside, dozens of drawings. Childish, violent, beautiful, familiar. They were Mia's style, but dated decades ago. One showed a girl standing at the edge of a lake. Another, a house, burning with children watching from the trees. The final page had only one thing written. "We never left." The mirrors were waking up. That's what Mia wrote in her notebook, not knowing why. She didn't remember putting it down. But when she flipped through the pages, each one held her handwriting, darker, more erratic, like someone else had been holding her hand as she wrote. "They're watching through the glass. Not all reflections come back clean. I saw her again." And then a final note. "She said my name." Rachel began keeping Mia in her room at night, locking the door from the outside. But every morning the lock was unlatched. Mia would be sitting in her bed, staring at the mirror across the room. "She says I used to live here," Mia whispered one morning. "Before I was born." Rachel tried to hold it together. She contacted a therapist in the next town. She even considered taking Mia to her sister in Pennsylvania. But deep down she knew leaving wouldn't work, because the house didn't want them to leave. That afternoon, Rachel returned to the attic. She hadn't told Nathan. She brought the trunk downstairs and went through the drawings again. But this time, she noticed something new. Beneath the false bottom of the trunk, taped between old floorboards, was a journal. Faded leather, torn spine, the name on the first page, Art H. Rachel Thomas Hayes. It was hers, but she'd never seen it before. Inside were entries, hundreds of them, written in a looping, childlike script that slowly degraded into madness. "They brought me back, but not all of me came. The girl in the mirror moves first. I hear the tapping under the bathtub again." Then a passage dated June 13th, 1979. "I drew her again today. Her face looks like mine now. Mom doesn't see her. Dad says I was never gone. But I was. I remember the dark. I remember the door. I remember the ash." Rachel dropped the journal. The name, the drawings, the handwriting. This was her childhood, the one she couldn't remember. Ashwood House wasn't new to her. It was where she vanished as a child. That night, Rachel confronted her mother over the phone. "Tell me the truth," she said. "Did I ever disappear?" There was a long silence on the other end. Then her mother whispered, "They said you wandered off, that you were just lost. But when you came back, you weren't the same. You never told me. We weren't supposed to. The doctor said if you forgot, That was safest. Rachel's hands shook. Forgot what? But her mother just said, "Stay out of the mirrors." Then the line went dead. Mia found the mirror room again. It wasn't where she left it. This time it appeared behind the linen closet, in a place that made no architectural sense. The house was folding in on itself. Inside, the mirrors had changed. One now showed a lake at night. Another showed her parents arguing. But the one directly in front of her showed herself, smiling, until the reflection blinked before Mia did, and the smile turned into something else, something that stretched too far across the face. The girl stepped forward, not in the room, but in the mirror, and then whispered, "You took my place." Mia screamed. Rachel rushed in, but the mirror room was gone again. That night Mia drew obsessively. More doors, more faces, more eyes. Nathan finally confronted Rachel. "She's not safe here. None of us are. We have to go." But when they tried to leave, the car wouldn't start. The phones died. The front gate wouldn't open. The GPS? Blank. They were surrounded by fog so thick, it might as well have been stone. Rachel began having dreams. In them, she was a child again, walking through the forest, following whispers, finding a door built into the base of a tree. Inside, darkness, and something waiting. When she awoke, she had dirt under her fingernails and scratches on her arms. She hadn't left the bed. Or had she? On the fourth night of the third week in Ashwood House, Mia disappeared. Her bedroom was empty. No footprints. No sign of a break-in. Just one thing left behind on her pillow. A mirror. Handheld. Antique. Cracked down the center. And written in condensation across the glass. "She's home now." Mia was gone. Rachel tore through the house, screaming her daughter's name. Every room, every closet, every crawlspace. Nothing. Not even the mirrors showed her anymore. Nathan searched the woods until nightfall. His flashlight flickered against the fog, useless against the black between the trees. "She's here somewhere," he kept saying. "She has to be. Where would she go?" But Rachel knew. Mia hadn't left. She had crossed over. She returned to the mirror room, or where it used to be. She knocked on walls, felt for hollow spaces, pushed against plaster. And then, behind a bookshelf, a hidden door clicked. Inside, the mirrors. But now they were covered with sheets. She pulled one off. In the reflection, she saw the room behind her, and herself, and Mia, standing directly behind her. Rachel spun around, but the room was empty. When she turned back to the mirror, Mia was still there, smiling. "Why are you scared, Mommy?" Her voice echoed faintly. "You came back once too." Nathan found the old journal again. In it, a passage he hadn't seen before. Some reflections are traps. Others are doors. But the worst ones are cages. She called it the other house. A place that looks like ours but isn't. A place where the forgotten stay. Rachel remembered something from her childhood. A closet that didn't open into clothes, but into woods. A bathtub that filled itself with black water. Her twin in the mirror who didn't blink. It wasn't imagination. It was memory. That night, Rachel took the cracked hand mirror from Mia's pillow and stared into it for hours. At exactly 3:12 a.m., she whispered, "Take me to her." The mirror went cold in her hands. She touched its surface and felt it pull. Hard. She fell forward into blackness. She woke in a place that looked like Ashwood House. But wrong. Everything was dimmer. The angles sharper. The walls breathed slightly, like lungs. The air smelled like rot and lilies. From the hallway came laughter. Children's voices. She followed them. Through the warped kitchen. Past the cellar. To the mirror room now brighter than ever. Inside were children. 15? 20? Their faces blurred. All dressed in white. In the center stood Mia. She turned slowly, eyes black as obsidian, and said, "You shouldn't be here." "Mia, it's me," Rachel said. "We're going home." But Mia only smiled. "You left before. You forgot me." Then the others spoke. She was the first. whispered a girl with no mouth. She opened the door, said a boy with empty sockets. She belonged to the hollow. Rachel backed away, but the mirrors were shifting, melting. The frames twisted, growing long, thorny arms. The porcelain doll from before sat in one corner, now human-sized. Watching, smiling, Rachel screamed, and the mirrors screamed back. Meanwhile, in the real world, Nathan was tearing up the house. He ripped open walls, smashed through the floorboards, uncovered spaces that hadn't been seen in decades. Behind the fireplace, he found it. A sealed room. Inside, dozens of broken mirrors, charred toys, and one wall covered in the same phrase written over and over, "Only the reflection returns." In the center, a small wooden box. He opened it and found another hand mirror. This one had Mia's initials carved into the back. And a message: "Bring her back before the house decides she stays." Rachel ran through the mirror version of Ashwood House. The children followed. Mia walked slowly behind her, always just out of reach. "You left me in the lake," she whispered. "No," Rachel cried. "I never left you." "Yes, you did," Mia said. "You let it take me, just like they let it take you." Rachel stumbled into her old bedroom, now rotten, covered in mold. In the mirror above the bed, she saw herself as a child. The girl stepped forward. "You were the first to escape," the child Rachel said. "But you left the door open." Nathan knelt on the floor, holding both mirrors, the old one from Rachel's past, and the new one from Mia. The clock read 3:11 a.m. He held both together, reflective sides facing. At 3:12, the mirrors pulsed, screamed, then cracked. In the same moment, Rachel found herself falling. Not through space, but through glass. The mirror world shattered around her, and she fell into the hallway of the real house, holding Mia's hand. Mia was shaking, eyes wide, covered in ash, but alive. Rachel sobbed, hugged her daughter. Nathan ran in. They didn't speak, just held each other. But then Mia whispered, "She followed us." The mirrors were gone. Rachel had them all removed or smashed, every single one. But it didn't matter. Mia still saw her. Not in glass now, in water, in windows, in shadows. "She's watching from inside me," Mia whispered. Rachel and Nathan tried to stay calm. Routine, meals, light. No more talk about the house or the girl. But the silence between them grew heavier by the day. And Mia, she wasn't the same. On the second night after they returned, Rachel found Mia standing barefoot in the hallway at 3:12 a.m. "Mia?" she asked softly. The girl didn't turn. "She wants your voice," Mia said, "because you forgot hers." Then she looked up, and her eyes were black again. Rachel woke with scratches on her neck. Nathan found bite marks on his shoulder. In the mirror above the sink, the one they missed, the porcelain doll stood behind him, smiling. They tried to leave again, this time with help. Nathan's brother drove in from out of town. But as soon as his car turned onto the hollow road, all 4 tires exploded simultaneously. No cell signal. The fog closed in like a living wall. And then they heard it. Laughter, childlike, everywhere. The house was no longer just haunted. It was awake. Rachel went to the attic one last time. The trunk was back. Inside, a photo album she had never seen. Pictures of children. Dozens of them. All dated. All with eyes scratched out. At the end, a picture of Mia. And one more. Rachel, age 5. Standing next to the lake. Behind her, a dark silhouette in the water. Smiling. Written beneath the photo. "The ones who return never return alone." Rachel finally remembered everything. The night she vanished as a child. She wasn't lost. She was taken. Lured into the mirror. Pulled through by something that wore her face. When she came back, part of it stayed inside. And now, through Mia, it was finishing what it started. Nathan made a plan. At 3:12 a.m., they would return to the mirror room, together. They waited. The door reappeared as it always did. They entered. It was empty, until the mirrors lit up, and the children came forward. One by one, they stepped from the glass, eyes dark, mouths open in silent screams. In the center stood Mia, or something that looked like her. Rachel stepped forward, held out her hand. "You don't have to stay." The girl tilted her head. "I never left," she said. And then she stepped forward, the real Mia, crawling from the mirror, gasping, crying. Nathan pulled her out. The doppelganger reached for Rachel's hand. Rachel didn't pull away. She looked at Nathan, then at Mia. "Go," she said, then stepped into the mirror world. The door slammed shut behind her. Mia collapsed into Nathan's arms. The mirrors cracked. The house groaned like stone grinding against stone. And then, silence. Outside, the fog lifted. The gates opened. The road returned. They left Ashwood Hollow before the sun rose. 6 months later, they live in a quiet town near the ocean. Mia is better, brighter, laughing again. But sometimes in her drawings Rachel still appears. Watching, protecting, standing in a mirror, always smiling. Because some doors close only when someone stays behind. And someone always has to stay behind. This was the chilling conclusion of Whispers in the Ashwood House. If you followed this story to the end, thank you. Please like this video, subscribe for more cinematic story series, and leave a comment. Did this ending surprise you? What do you think really lives in the mirror world? And of course, where are you watching from? Drop your country below. We love seeing our global community of mystery lovers.